Hey, fear and anxiety, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here investigating your favorite movies and films, and today I'm going to do a movie review of Bout De Souffle. Bout De Souffle. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, or in English, Breathless. So, Breathless is a film written and directed, actually, I think only directed by Luc-Godard in the year 1960. And, yeah, I know it's really weird for me to suddenly, completely out of the blue, review a movie from, like, 60 years ago, 61 years ago, in fact, and then be like, the plot, the directing, this and that. Here's the thing. This film isn't just any film. This film is considered as one of the most important benchmarks in the genre of the French New Wave, which I have been interested in for a while. I don't know about French New Wave all that well, so I decided, you know what, I'll start off with this film. This is also simultaneously the debut full-length feature film of Jean-Luc Godard, and he is one of my Chinese teacher's 4 favorite directors ever, so I gotta check it out, you know? And another reason why I decided to watch this film out of the blue is because I watched a lot of film noirs. And apparently the French New Wave is heavily inspired by the American film noir, so given the film geek that I am, of course I have to check it out, otherwise I can't call myself a film geek. So, Breathless. This is a really polarizing movie. Polarizing then, polarizing now, for different reasons. Of course, back then, it's really weird because this movie breaks all the conventional rules that French cinema has back in the early 1960s. Polarizing now because a lot of people actually think it's not that great of a film. And I can totally see why. The plot is super uninteresting. The characters are kind of so-so, and the film itself is kind of all over the place. It's a bit messy, but in a sense, that is kind of the point. Because movies like this, it's not disjointed for no reason whatsoever. It's not disjointed because Jean-Luc Godard is a terrible director. No. It is disjointed in a way, and so detached in a way, because it is intentional. If French cinema were to really copy American Hollywood movies and film noir step by step, they still would have made something way more coherent and interesting. I mean, back in the 1950s, Alfred Hitchcock films, Orson Welles films, Stanley Kubrick films, well, actually, let's exclude Stanley Kubrick. These films are rather straightforward, entertaining, and fast-paced. But after watching this film, it is clear that Jean-Luc Godard doesn't want to follow that. Instead, he's going to follow his own footsteps. He's going to follow his own pace. Thus, we have the incredibly, unconventional and sort of not really all that interesting and kind of a messy of a film. Essentially, the plot is basically we have Michel, a guy who is a killer, who killed a cop earlier in the beginning of the movie, and he sort of models himself after his hero, that is Humphrey Bogart. There's even a scene where he stares at a poster and photos of Humphrey Bogart, and he kind of imitates Bogart by smoking and then wiping the lips. And he fell in love with a girl by the name of Patricia, who is from New York, but moved to Paris and to work there. And she was American, but she sort of tries to be European, while the dude, Michel, is a Parisian, or at least French, but tries to act cool and act like an American. Thus, we have the movie. There's also, again, he killed a cop earlier in the movie, so the movie is almost a bit of a manhunt movie where the cops are trying to catch him and he's trying to escape, but that really isn't the main point of the movie at all. In fact, that really led to nowhere. So again, this movie doesn't have much of a narrative, and I feel like it's intentional because it sort of breaks the rules of conventional cinema back then. Movie has to have a lot of substance. Movies have to have a lot of narrative. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Second of all, after watching the movie, I was honestly kind of confused. Like, what's the hype about this film? It's not terrible, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted to. But after some thinking, I realized that this film is a parody. It's a parody of the American cinema. Not exactly a to-the-point, straightforward parody, but it sort of reflects how people may view American Hollywood from a standpoint of, wow, it's so cool. Humphrey Bogart, oh my god. And that's actually just kind of stupid, because in reality, life and movies are not limited to just that. And of course we have the main character, Michel, who acts really cool, but honestly at the end of the day, ultimately he is just one goofy, oopsie daisies kind of person, you know? Not really all that successful, not really all that cool. So this film is almost parodical, and it's intentional as well. Also, there are a lot of funny scenes, and before going into this movie, I didn't know anything about this movie at all, and I find a few scenes kind of funny, actually. There's one scene which is super long, oh my god, 25 minutes, where Patricia and Michel were in an apartment and they just flirt with each other, chat, and that's it for 25 minutes. There's no progression, no plot, all chatter, and that scene is one of the most confusing and almost frustrating, but in a beautiful sense, scenes in the movie. But there's one particular line where Michel asks Patricia, "How many men have you slept with?" And Patricia's like, "Not much." And then Michel responded by saying, and then Patricia asked Michel, "Then how many women have you slept with?" And then Michel was like, "Not much." And that was hilarious. There's the other scene. The film kind of picks up its pace at the second half when Patricia had to outrun a cop, and that scene was also kind of hilarious. There are also many other more hilarious scenes in this movie. Yeah, there's also one long take towards the beginning of the movie, and that's the only scene in the entire film where Godard used like a super long take for some reason. Again, there's the 25-minute chatter scene where nothing happens, which is really weird. There's one scene where Patricia had to like interview this one famous writer or something. And these interviewers, they ask these really deep questions, and this writer person just replies in the wittiest and the most senseless ways possible. That scene is also one of my favorites of the entire movie. And on the technical side of things, of course, there is a lot of things about this movie that makes it French New Wave. First of all, we have the jump cuts where the camera is sort of at the same position, but it constantly jumps from one place to another, signifying that time has, you know, passed, but also the fact that the scene doesn't even matter all that much. The score is jazzy, and it kind of deviates from the very dramatic orchestral explosions of the American cinema back in the 1940s and 50s. And there's also a lot of noise, unnecessary noise in the background. You know, two characters would be chatting and the camera would focus on something else, like a painting or the floor or whatever. And then there's gonna be like noise in the background. And in conventional cinema, why would you do that? But it's French New Wave, so I guess you can do that now. and it's kind of funny. But I think overall, what's special about this film is not that it is dramatic or serious at all. It is the opposite. It has manhunt, it has the romance element, but at the end of the day, it's so laid back and relaxed and kind of funny. Kind of makes fun of itself and is kind of lighthearted, and it is what it is. Now, again, story-wise, it isn't really all that great, but I'd say from a historical standpoint and from a standpoint that this movie tries to break rules while being lighthearted, it's not that bad of a watch. Yeah, I'm giving a Bout De Souffle a strong 7 to a light 8 out of 10. So have you watched Breathless from 1 to 10? How much did you rate it? Like, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching. I'm gonna return to the school, like now, and I'm kind of nervous.